That's a tough act to follow. Well, poetry in motion is a topic, a concept that I explore every day. And sometimes it's a visual, sometimes it's a feeling, sometimes it's an emotion, sometimes it's an emotion, sometimes it's an action. This road, I kind of wonder what would happen if you go to the right. You know, just go over that cliff. Don't go left. Don't follow the sign. Poetry in motion is often unpredictable. It often speaks for itself. All we have to do is, in this case, set up the camera and get out of the way. And of course, the poetry of these mountains here, unexpected things happen, as you all know, living in Taos, like women flying in the sky. That's pretty poetic, I think. We also have beautiful hot air balloons rising to the heavens, which if you haven't been up, you really ought to. It's very amazing. And these mountains just never cease to amaze me with the people that are here, snow dogs and snow patrol who can dig you out of an avalanche in a minute and a half if you're lucky. It's all poetry to me. And then there's the poetry of an expedition. In this case, it was an expedition to save a river in the Rio Pequare, Costa Rica. And we have these beautiful horses, which are poetic in themselves, the way they were packed, camera gear, kayaks, whatnot. And an expedition is poetry in motion because you don't know what's going to happen. And of course you have your cast of characters in any good expedition. In this case, warrior, poet, river guide, Cisco Guevara. And you never know what you're going to need on an expedition. He's got a sharp blade. And I love working with people like this because it's really truly unpredictable. And then of course the poetry in motion of a river, which if most people here have probably been down the river, and it is highly unpredictable, and the Rio Pequare was no exception. And actually there's fear in our eyes because we're about to land on a big fat rock. And the poetry of a river is just, you know, crazy because it has its own eddies, and there we are. And sometimes poetry in motion turns a little bit chaotic. In this case, like, what are we supposed to do here? We ended up on this rock for about 4 hours. I love the poetry in motion of the curves and the angles, and this guy jumps, Scott, right here, and to me this is poetry in motion for sure. The way the lines are attached, the lines, his hand is out, he's got perfect form, and he's jumping for his life. Pretty amazing. That's the same rock getting off the boat. We had to figure out how to get everybody off, including my camera gear, which we took underwater. And then there's the ass crack. I know you're all looking at the butt. However, I want to point you to Cisco in the background there, and he has a helmet on, which he never wears. He's smiling in humbleness because he's usually not used to being on a rock. He's usually going down the river in true style. In this case, we beached it for a while. The poetry of a river speaks for itself again here. Big water, big muddy water, going down, getting tumbled, trying to survive, get some air, get back in the boat if you can, and just do it again, fall out again. Poetry in motion isn't always glamorous, it's not always pretty. And then, of course, poetry in motion happens without people, and this is a good example where the clouds move with or without us. Just happened to capture it that day. Birds, very poetic, eating their banana. Poetry in motion, time lapse. And then there's the poetry in motion of a visionary, and this guy Tim Linhart is a true visionary. He built a celestial sphere at about 16,000 feet in Italy. And working with him is truly like working with a poet because you don't know what to expect, and only he knows what he's about to produce. What the heck is that thing? It's huge. Poetry in motion of the act of creation and believing in what you're doing. No one else knows what the heck you're doing. Look at this woman. This is Tim's wife, Brigitte. She's blowing snow. What the heck is she doing? Months on end. And what are they creating? Well, poetry in motion again, because they're actually creating instruments out of ice. And it's poetic because they're taking H2O, it's frozen, and they're vibrating it and making sound. He's a true poet, and he's kissing his masterpiece. Doesn't have strings yet, but it will soon. This was at the Ski Valley. Poetry in motion, when it becomes manifested, you have a result that could never be visualized by anyone except for the poet, the artist, because who else could come up with this? I mean, who? Nobody in the world except for Tim Lennart.
I suck as a player, so... I suck as a player, so...
This is in the Ski Valley last year.
Hey, is it snowing?
Hey, is it snowing?
Sacrifice your body for that.
He's not the light right now, I gotta see what I'm doing.
Is why this thing
This is from clumsiness of handling.
Is why this thing is cracked.
Ja, jag vet att jag liksom jättegärna skulle vilja vara hemma en. Alla vet att jag liksom jättegärna skulle vilja vara hemma en enda jul.
We've made musical instruments out of ice.
My mom always said,
We've made musical instruments out of
ice and
ice.
water. My mom always said, ice and water. Makes you smarter.
Gold!
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
And here we have the beautiful Taos Mountain Balloon Rally, which is poetry in motion. Again, all I had to do was capture and get out of the way. And shoveling shit. It's a great way to stay humble. Poetry in motion.